Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you for joining. We are continuing with Bhagavad-Gita as it is. We are in chapter number 6, which is entitled Dhyana Yoga. And I'll cover a few verses from 31 to 33. Verse number 31 in Sanskrit. Sarvabhuta sthitam yo mam bhajati ekatvam ashitaha sarvatha vartamano api sa yogi mai vartate. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Supersoul, knowing that I and the Supersoul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we are continuing with knowledge about a Dhyana Yogi or an Ashtanga Yogi. And today in these few verses, we will see, we in fact will get knowledge about the symptoms of a Dhyana Yogi. How do we recognize if a person is actually a Dhyana Yogi and what is his goal? Why does he perform Dhyana Yoga? Now this verse that we read just now, here, Krishna is talking about that perfect yogi that we've been hearing for the past few weeks. That perfect yogi understands that Krishna and the supersoul, which is within the heart of every living entity, is the same. It's Krishna who's situated in the heart as Paramatma or the supersoul. So he says when a person realizes that, then that person always is in me. Krishna says he is the one who is connected with the supersoul. So he's talking about someone who can see Krishna everywhere in and everything. Then that person is actually in knowledge. And such a yogi, a perfect yogi, then starts performing devotional service, which means he serves the Lord, the super soul, in devotion. So here Krishna is talking about the Dhyana Yogi who is meditating on the super soul within the heart. And what is the goal of such a yogi? His goal is to see the super soul. Many times people say, I do not believe in God. You first show me God, then I will believe in God. But we have to qualify ourselves to see God. So here, this perfect yogi, Dhyana Yogi, his goal is to see the super soul within the heart. Now, the Vedic scriptures clearly explain what is the form of the supersoul within the heart, gives very explicit description of the supersoul. It says the supersoul or the Lord within the heart is the size of the thumb and is in the four-handed Vishnu form, and he's situated within the heart. That is the place where the supersoul is. And from chapter 2 of Bhagavad-Gita, we understood that we are spirit souls, we are not this body, and we as spirit souls are also situated within the heart. So the soul and the super soul, they are side by side within the heart. So the perfect yogi understands that Krishna and the super soul, they are one and the same, and also understands why is the super soul within the heart. What is the reason? The reason is because he wants to guide us. He wants to be the witness of our activities, and above and beyond, he is the sanctioner of our desires. So in the heart, the Supreme Lord is situated as the Supersoul. And if a person is always in that consciousness, then that person is considered to be liberated, has already achieved liberation. Liberation is not something we achieve after death. One can be liberated even while in this material body. So, what is the result of someone who is always conscious of Krishna? Always. Then the result will be that person is associating with Krishna all the time. That is the connection. And that is considered the highest stage of trance. Trance is not just where one sits in a secluded place with eyes closed and trying to meditate. Yes, that is also trance. But here, Srila Prabhupada is talking about the highest stage of trance in yoga practice. And what is that? When one starts associating with the supersoul within the heart. Krishna is one, he's the Supreme Lord, but he is all pervading. Just like Prabhupada gives the analogy of the sun, there's only one sun, but it is all pervading. The sunshine is spread everywhere. So that is the example given, that even though the sun is one place, but it appears to be everywhere. Similarly, Krishna is one, but he appears to be in everyone's heart, but he is one only. In the very next verse, number 32, excuse me, Krishna is giving some more knowledge to Arjuna. What does he say? He says he is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna. So here we can see that Krishna is talking about equal vision. He's already explained about that. He said, Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmane Gavi Hastini Suni Cheva Swapakicha Panditaha Samadarshina. Panditaha means a learned person. Who is this yogi? Who is this learned person? Samadarshina, he sees everyone equally, does not discriminate based on the outward bodily appearance, has an equal vision. So to come to that stage of equal vision, there is a process one needs to follow. And the first thing is to take on the knowledge. When we take on the knowledge from the Bhagavad-Gita, and then we put it into practice, which means application, then that will lead to, the result will be self-realization, where someone who is practicing Bhagavad Gita will understand the self. That is what Krishna is talking about here in this verse, about a perfect yogi. He's not talking about a yogi with matted hair, long beard, or saffron clothes, or living in the Himalayan mountains. No, he's talking about like someone like you and me, who's living in this material world with the family, in the society, with relatives and friends, but the consciousness is that of a yogi. So knowledge from the Bhagavad Gita plus putting it into practice, or applying the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, that will lead one to self-realization. Now we've noticed, we have also experienced that sometimes we are distressed, sometimes we are sad, sometimes we are depressed, we are, sometimes happy. But most of the time, people are comparing themselves with others. Oh, I have this, but my neighbor has that, so I got to have that. So there's this comparison, and this comparison is considered like a disease, because it just makes one miserable. If we see someone else having more than what we have, then that leads to moroseness or lamentation. So from the chapter 3 and 5 of Bhagavad Gita, we understood that whatever one is experiencing now, whether it is happiness or distress, whether one is beautiful, wealthy, knowledgeable, famous, whatever it may be, it is all based on past karma, based on our past activities. Now we are reaping the fruits of our past activities. So comparing ourselves with others is only make us miserable. So here the perfect yogi understands, does not discriminate, has an equal vision, is not disturbed when there are miseries, is not elated when there is too much happiness. And mostly people, those who feel distressed, that is because they are forgetful of their own nature, forgetful of the Supreme Lord Krishna. They have forgotten the goal of life, they have forgotten the purpose, they have forgotten who is the ultimate enjoyer and the master, and they've forgotten their own constitutional position, which is to serve the Supreme Lord and to perform service with devotion without thinking of a reward in mind. Oh, if I do this, then probably this should be the result I should get. No. When one comes to that stage of understanding one's own real position of being the servant of the Supreme Lord Krishna, then one will actually experience real happiness. Not the happiness of this material world, which has a beginning and that also has an end. No. Why? Because a person has not trained the mind. You see, the mind is considered like a child. It needs to be disciplined. It needs to be corrected. It needs to be trained. It needs guidance, just like the children need the guidance of their parents or elders or grandparents or teacher in school, whoever it may be. So similarly, the mind also needs training. And that is what we have been hearing in the previous chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. And of course, in the future, again, Krishna is going to talk about it. But today we are going to cover a little bit more about the mind. So what happens based on the association we have, based on the food that we eat, then we start, our actions are based on those different modes. Sometimes we are operating in the mode of goodness, sometimes it's passion, and sometimes it's ignorance, or sometimes it's a mixture of these three modes. But Bhagavad Gita teaches us how to transcend these modes and go to the mode of pure goodness. Of course, there's one whole chapter, number 14, which is dedicated to the modes of material nature. So we will learn more about these modes then. But right now, it's important to understand that Krishna is talking about this perfect yogi who does not act in these different modes of material nature, is not conditioned. You know, conditioning is something that has been with us for a very long time, and it takes a while to remove this conditioning. And of course, most people in this world are facing material miseries. Why? Because they've forgotten who they really are. Usually people in this material world, they identify with the body. They are only thinking about how to satisfy the body. No one really thinks about how to satisfy the soul. Just like we need to feed the body, we need to feed the soul also. And the food for the soul is Bhagavad Gita and mantra meditation. So when a person forgets the relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna, then that person needs to wake up and take up this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, and not only just take it, but also give it to others. You see, everyone in this material, not everyone, but most people are suffering. What are they suffering? They are suffering miseries caused by material nature, miseries caused by the body and the mind, miseries caused by other people. And of course, there are four miseries that everyone is facing, which is birth, disease, old age, and death. So if one wants to come out of this cycle of misery, if one wants to be permanently happy, then one needs to understand the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is actually a spiritual science. It is giving us knowledge about this machinery which is called the body. You see, just like with a new car, we get an owner's manual, which tells us how to use this car, what kind of gas does it need? Does it need a regular gas or a diesel? How does it operate? Similarly, Bhagavad Gita is the owner's manual for this material body that tells us how to use this very complicated machinery in such a way so that we can become self-realized. Now, Krishna is giving us a hint about who is the best yogi. We are talking about perfect yogi. We are talking about Dhyana Yogi. We are talking about someone who is interested in seeing the super soul. Who is that? That yogi is the one who practices Bhagavad Gita and also gives this knowledge to others. So Dhyana Yogi is only not only interested in oneself, but is also interested in delivering the others also. Now let's see, what does Krishna say in the next verse, number 33. In fact, this verse number 33 is not by Krishna, but it is by Arjuna. Arjuna is now a little bit confused. So he says, Arjuna said, O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. Now, let me tell you, Arjuna, the great warrior, 5,000 years ago, was there present with the Supreme Lord Krishna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He was a very well-versed person. In other words, he was well-versed in the scriptures, in the Vedas. So he knew the process of self-realization. He was someone who had practiced devotional service. But here he is saying that the mind is restless and unsteady. Do we relate to that? Absolutely, because we have experienced it ourselves, that our minds are mostly it's mostly restless and unsteady. And here Krishna, so far in this chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita entitled Dhyana Yoga, he explained to Arjuna about how to meditate, what is the right way to meditate. And he explained that for a person to really meditate correctly has to go to a very secluded place like a forest or something, lay kusha grass, put deer skin on it, sit down absolutely erect, straight, the whole body straight, sitting, I mean, the back completely straight, with half eyes open, half closed, and staring at the tip of the nose. And then one must try to meditate on the super soul. This is, Arjuna is saying, this, what you have summarized so far, it seems impractical, unendurable to me. Why? Because Arjuna at that time, 5,000 years ago, he couldn't find this practical. So imagine us in this Kali Yuga, where, people have short lives, they are lazy, they are unlucky, they are misguided, they are quarrelsome. With all these situations, how is it possible for someone to leave the family and go to the forest and sit down and meditate? People generally can't even do without their phones. I know my my grandson, as soon as he wakes up, the first thing he sees is his phone. Where is my phone? I need to check how many text messages I have missed. Have I missed any phone calls? And we'll look for, some video games or something or the other. How can one do without a phone or a tablet or a laptop or a computer? It's almost impractical. So how can we think of giving up everything, giving up family with whom we are so attached, and then just go to the forest? So here Arjuna is saying, it's impractical. Why? Because he gives the reason. He says it's because the mind is restless and unsteady. I'm sure you have noticed, within few seconds, the mind can travel thousands of miles, like Sometimes when I'm just probably cooking or something, in an instant, my mind goes all the way around the world to India. It doesn't take very long. And before I know, the mind has gone to somewhere else and is thinking of something else. The mind is always active and it is very unsteady. So, here, why is it that Krishna gave all this knowledge about Ashtanga Yoga, Dhyana Yoga? Is talking about perfect yogi, so that people get the knowledge. If anyone is interested in realizing oneself through meditation, this is the process. This is how meditation is performed, not just sitting in one corner or in a dark room in the house or in some class. You sit and close your eyes and you just, meditate for a few minutes or an hour. That is not real meditation. That is not perfect yoga. Perfect yoga is very clearly described by Krishna in this chapter. So, why did he give? Because there are some options that need to be available. There are some who want to perform that. But in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and even in third, we understood that there is a yoga ladder. So there is karma yoga, there is jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, ashtanga yoga, and bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is considered to be the topmost rung of this yoga ladder. And Krishna explains that anyone who performs bhakti yoga, bhakti means devotion, which means performing devotional service for the Lord. So if one follows that bhakti yoga, then automatically one is covering all the other forms of yoga. That why is a person performing bhakti yoga? Because that person already has knowledge, has jnana yoga, is karma yoga, is already performing activities based on that knowledge. So, and is already realizing the super soul within the heart. So ashtanga yoga, dhyana, everything is covered in bhakti yoga. So here Krishna is saying that a person who is a perfect yogi is most happy, because that person has realized that I am not this body, I'm the spirit soul within the heart, and there is the supreme Lord situated within the heart, who is actually the witness to all our activities. So here Arjuna is saying, oh, mind is very restless, mind is unsteady. Then one may say, is there a solution to that? Absolutely, there is. In the further chapters, Krishna will explain how to control the mind. So you see, all these are related. The senses, the mind, the intelligence, they're all related to each other, in the sense that if the intelligence is fed or is nourished with knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, then the intelligence will control the mind. And once the mind is under control, then the senses will automatically come under control. Then the mind is not going to run here and there. Why? Because the mind has been saturated, has been completely soaked in knowledge with the help of intelligence. So here Krishna is giving some options. Those who want to, perform Ashtanga yoga, they are welcome to do that. But this is the process how to do, because each individual has a different goal. Someone wants to be a bhakti yogi, someone wants to be a karma yogi, someone wants to be no yogi at all, and that's fine. So, like for instance, there are three stages of realizing the Supreme Lord. What are they? The first stage, the bottom stage, is realizing the Lord as a Brahma Jyoti, which is the effulgence of the Supreme Lord. This highest than that, the stage is realization of Paramatma, which is a super soul within the heart. And that is what this chapter is talking about a Dhyana Yogi who perfects this process of yoga and somehow or the other realizes the super soul within the heart and is able to see the super soul within the heart. But Krishna says the highest stage of realization, Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the highest stage. Bhagavan means the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here in this chapter, these few verses that we took today, we are learning how it is good to perform yoga, but one should understand what is the easiest method of performing yoga, which is, not very cumbersome, which is not very difficult, where a person doesn't need to go to the forest. There is one process, and that is Bhakti Yoga. You see, generally people are very, very busy in their day-to-day life. They don't have time. Even I sometimes feel there should be 28 hours in a day instead of 24, because 24 hours don't seem to be enough because there is so much to do. So there are so many responsibilities, and there are so many struggles, and there are so many tribulations, and so much is going on in this short duration of life. So Bhagavad Gita is teaching us how we can lead, first of all, a karma free life, secondly, a very peaceful life, and thirdly, a struggle free life in whatever short duration of life that we have. So those who are, serious about self-realization, they take on this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, wherein Krishna is explaining a very easy method of devotional service. Now, Arjuna, he understood that all this Dhyana Yoga knowledge that Krishna has given him is impossible for people in Kali Yuga. We are living in this age which is called Kali Yuga. So there are 4 ages: Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and Kali Yuga. So we are in Kali Yuga. So Arjuna understood. Who was Arjuna? Arjuna was from a royal family. He was a prince. He was, even though he was a prince, he was a very austere person. He had his senses under control. His mind was under control. Even though he had such good facilities, he had so much opulence. He was living in a palace, he had everything that he wanted, but still his mind was under control. And that is why he realized and he understood that Dhyana Yoga was impractical, especially for us in this Kali Yuga age. Why? Because mind is restless and it is unsteady. And the mind, just like a child needs training, the mind needs proper engagement. The mind needs something that gives them a higher taste. You see, it's the mind that makes us run around. It's the mind that says, I want this, I want to go there, I want that and this. And so the mind is, creating so many desires. And then the senses, they start running to fulfill those desires. But when the mind gets a higher taste, I always give this example of a child who's eating dirt. But if the child is given candy or a lollipop, the child will give up the dirt. Why? Because the child has now got higher taste, something that's tasting much better than the dirt. So that is same for the mind also. The mind needs higher proper engagement. And the Bhagavad Gita teaches us how we can reach that higher taste level, how we can control the mind, how we can control the senses, and how we can purify our existence. So in Kali Yuga, just like the Vedic scriptures tell us, Krite yadhyayato Vishnu, Tretayam yajito make, Dwapare paricharyayam, Kalau tad hari kirtana. He's talking about 4 different ages. In Satya Yuga, Krite Yad, in Satya Yuga, the process of self-realization was meditation. And in those days, in that yuga, people used to live for 100,000 years. We can't even imagine that. So people in that age, because they had such a long lifespan, the process for self-realization was meditation for at least 30,000 years. Then a person would become self-realized. Then as the next age came in, that is Treta Yuga, the lifespan was reduced to 10,000 years. And the process was, yagya, which means fire sacrifices, for hundreds of years. Then the next age came in, which is Dwapar Yuga. The people lived approximately 1000 years. So the process was elaborate worship in the temples. But now it says Kalau Tad. Kalau means in Kali Yuga. Tad means we get the same benefit that the other three yugas people got with meditation, fire sacrifice, and worship. In Kali Yuga, Kalautad, Hari Kirtanat. Hari means Krishna. Kirtanat means chanting the holy names of the Lord, which is mantra meditation. So in Kali Yuga, the process is very, very simple. It's not very elaborate. It's not expensive at all. It's actually free of charge. All we have to do is just sit in one corner. I mean, not in a corner, just sit in one place and just chant the holy names of the Lord. The holy names of the Lord are so powerful. They are very powerful sound vibrations that really hit us in the heart. Hit in the sense they go and penetrate in the heart, and it cleanses the heart of all the impurities that might be there. So in mantra meditation, we are actually helping ourselves to gradually become self-realized, where we can understand, who am I? Am I this body, or am I the soul? And what is the purpose of my life? Those who do not have a goal in life are just wasting their human form of life. There has to be a goal, and the goal should be that I want to break the cycle of birth and death that has been going on perpetually. I want to come out of this, and I want to go to a place where there is permanent happiness, where I don't have any miseries, where I don't have to go to work 9 to 5, where I don't grow old, where I don't get any disease. Won't anyone want to be in that situation? Well, Bhagavad-Gita is showing us how. By the time we come to the last chapter, which is the 18th chapter, we will understand how gradually, step by step, we can reach that stage of self-realization where we become completely qualified that when we leave this body at the time of death, we will go straight to the spiritual world and never come back into this earthly material planet. In fact, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "A Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punar Avartino Arjuna Mam Upetyata Kaunteya Punar Janmana Vidyate." He says, if you don't want, you see, right from the topmost, highest material planet, which is Brahma Loka, down to the lowest, he says there is repeated birth and death going on. But those who come to my planet, which is the spiritual planet, they do not come back into this material world. So in Kali Yuga, the simple process for self-realization is chanting the holy names of the Lord. In fact, Krishna came 500 years ago to show us this method of chanting, to show us how one can very easily, free of charge, become self-realized and really actually understand the purpose of human life. In fact, in the chat, I'm going to post some of the links, and at the bottom of the links, you will see there is a mantra. It is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This is the formula in Kali Yuga that can help us to become self-realized. I'll just chant for a few minutes just to show you how we can chant, and maybe you can try it on a daily basis and see, experience it for yourself, how it can train the mind to become happy, calm, peaceful, and completely still, composed. There is no agitation in the mind. It goes like this: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So you see, it's very, very simple and it's free of charge. So, I would humbly request you to please try it at home. Try and, chant just for a little while and see, how you feel. So this is the few verses that we took today, and we'll continue next Tuesday with verse number 34 and see what Krishna is going to say more about a perfect yogi or dhyana yogi. So I'll stop now. If anyone has any questions or comments, you're very welcome to